Here are 5 effective ways with which you can improve your English starting today. In the world we live in today, English is not just a language, but also an instrument, a tool with which you can earn money. And I think with much confidence, I can say it is the language of money. It is a language with which you can influence people. You can reach a global audience. Think of English as a skill, as a tool or an instrument with which you can share your ideas. After reading my thumbnail, you must be wondering, why is he giving so much priority to English language? Look around you. Every other Indian that you'd see walking past you speaks in English. Our schools focus on this particular language, and there are multiple reasons for that. If we go back to history, we'd see colonialism. Let's go back to our own past. I remember when I was a kid of around 5, 4, 3, everyone around me looked differently at a person who could speak in English. Everybody had a different eye for a person who could speak in English. I was very much attracted with the societal benefits of speaking in English. Because almost everyone who could speak in English was considered to have high prospects in life, high standard of living, or security of job. My headmaster was partly Hindu, partly Christian. His mother was Christian and his father was Indian Hindu, and he had a different way of speaking. Not just he, his brother as well. They had a different way of speaking, a different mannerism. And I was very much attracted to that as a kid. I studied in that school for 9 years. It influenced the way I speak English. And I fought for this reason. I fought for an answer to tell people why I speak the way I speak. And I think with this collection of memory that I have, I can trace why I speak the way I speak. It brings a sense of alienation within my own society. But I think I have to live with it. And also that I've talked to a number of people from around the world, online. They accept me for how I speak, and they accept this mixed accent that I have, this mixed way of speaking. So it is Indian accent, American a little bit, and British a little bit. And of course, Canadian, about 5 effective ways with which you can improve your English. So first effective way that I think can help you achieve a fluency, help you form sentences quickly, is practice. Just have a time period where you don't speak, you just listen. And you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to your favorite films, English speaking films, where you can read subtitles, but you don't speak, okay? You just read it, you listen to what the actors are saying and how they're saying it. And a homework for you is to also note down the kind of film it is and the accent that the actor is using in it. So that way you'll understand what part of the world in which that kind of accent of English is being used or is being spoken. So make sure you note down if it's if let's say it's American Psycho and you're watching Christian Bale, he has an American accent in that film. So make sure, but Christian Bale is a British actor. He's British, but he's using an American accent in the film. So don't get confused in that. A lot of information will be stored inside your head. Subconsciously, consciously, it will. And it will want to get out. It would need an outlet. And that's when your brain starts to create ways with which you can deliver whatever it is that you have in your mind, whatever it is that you have gained after listening to a great deal of information. So that's why I say it's very important to be quiet and listen to people. Listen to people who have something to deliver. Listen to to stories, to people, to experienced mindsets, people who have tens and tens of years of experience, people who have written books. They come from a lot of experience. So once you begin to or listen to anything and everything that's out there, look at the choice of words they use, look at how they frame their sentences, pronunciation. Once you can observe that information in silence, now what happens is, when the time is right, when you know you can use this information that you have gained after listening to someone, anyone, professor, or it could be a YouTube video or anything, you can access that information and use it and see how effective that is. The power of listening has a miraculous impact on your brain. Once your brain registers, could be the choice of words of someone, pause, it could be the silence between words, it could be the gaps between words, it could be anything. It could be anything that has to do with a language. Once you actively start listening to what people have to say, you would not necessarily be conscious of the changes in your language once you actively start listening. Now let's come to practice speaking. You have to be very conscious of what you say. And let's say in the beginning when you start to speak, you will make a lot of mistakes. It is inevitable for you to make mistakes when you start anything. Take it, for example, when you first started to ride the bike, when you first started to ride a bicycle, how many times did you not fall? And how many times did you require your father's, mother's, brother's, anybody's help? Likewise, when you begin to start speaking in English, you will make mistakes. You will have errors, you will omit things, a bunch of mistakes will happen. And that should not let you be demoralized or demotivated. So you have to understand that trial and error will be there. Now, let's talk about the second effective way with which you can improve your English. Cinema. Watching films, watching cinema, watching movies, whatever you want to call it, it has something to do with rewiring your brain. It has something to do to give you, it gives you something. It provides so much of information to you that you might not even consciously be aware of. So when you watch a film, if you're starting to watch English films, if you're starting to watch Hollywood, if you're starting to watch any sort of films which has English subtitles in it, read those subtitles. In the beginning, of course, you'll find it depends on how fast you read. So in the beginning, it might occur that you're reading the subtitles and the movie has skipped a lot of events. I am an evidence. My English was improved so much by just watching films. I used to watch 3 films a day, 2-hour long films, 3-hour long films, 1 hour 50 minutes films, 90-minute films. So I would watch a lot of films and grab this information. I had access to some information that there were times I did not understand, but it was doing something to my head. It was slowly beginning to make some kind of a map, some puzzles were being, were automatically being formed. Third effective way with which you can improve your English is surrounding yourself who speak better than you. And these people can be your friends, peers, classmates, anyone who your neighbors, your professors, teachers, parents, anyone you meet online, or there are plenty of examples as such. It can be anyone. But the more you are with better people around you, the more you are with people who understand some skill better than you, there's a high probability that you will be making yourself better as well. There's a chance that you can improve. There's a chance for improvement if you surround yourself with if you surround yourself with people who are better than you in some or the other, let's say English language, cricket, or guitar, or anything, because you can learn from these people. So actively surround yourself with people who are better than you in some particular skill, because that way you can improve a lot on your skill. But our egos does not allow us to register someone better than us in our brain, because there's so much competition within us that why should I be surrounded by people who are better than me? Why can't I be better than them? And this whole cycle, this toxic cycle continues. But my suggestion is, you have to start with humility. You have to be humble enough to learn, because that stops a lot of people from bettering themselves, from being better than what they are. You have to humble down. You have to humble yourself in order to learn a skill. You can't make your teacher your competition. That teacher is there. That teacher has enough experience to make you understand. Think of them as a lighthouse. You're in the middle of the storm and you need some help. You're looking for help. You want to survive. You want to escape this cruel thunderstorm. Teachers, professors are that lighthouse. They guide you. So surround yourself with teachers, give them respect, earn it back through your hard work, through completing your homework, through working hard, because it will pay off. In the end, it will. Don't see them as a competition. The fourth effective way with which you can improve your English is... I forgot. I got it. Reading books. I still remember quite vividly when I was in college, my dear friend told me we did theater together. So she was playing Hermia and I was playing Lysander in A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. So at that point in time, I had never picked a novel or picked a book to read. Apart from the syllabus, the course in school, I would never pick a book and read. I was a bibliophile, so I would steal books, or I would just get it from somewhere or the other and then I'd just keep it. But I never read, apart from a few pages of Jules Verne's The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I had read a few pages and then, and I stole it from my library. Oops. And so this beautiful friend of mine, she told me that reading books does something magical to you. And by that time, I had never read a book on a book. So I was around 18 at that time, 18 or 19. I was in college and I had never read a book. I actually had never completed reading a book. So that's a very bad situation to be in. But look at me now. So what happened was, when she said that reading books does something magical to you, and that line kind of was ringing in my head for quite some time, and I couldn't get rid of it. So I remember I pursuing English honors. Now this course involves a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of reading, and so in my first or second semester we had Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bronte. And it's considered to be one of the... It's a hard book to read. That I think that's my honest opinion. It's a very hard book to read. And I was talking to someone from Britain, from England, and he said that even for them, it's a hard book to read. So you can understand, it's one hell of a book to read. So that was the first book that I picked. And I tell you why I'm talking about it in length. So that was the first book that I picked, and I started to read, and I could not understand one sentence of the book, of the first chapter. And I called this person who told me that reading books does something magical to you. So I called her and I told her that I'm giving up and I can't do it, and I think I've enrolled myself I should have enrolled myself in, I don't know, BCom or I don't know, but not this. And she's like, just keep on going. Just keep on going. Don't quit. Just keep on going. And I took that advice, and so I kept on going, and I failed. I was failing, but it took me 4 months. I remember it took me 4 months to finish first to second chapter of the book, and I hadn't understood anything from the first to second chapter. And then what happened was, the fifth month, as my semester was about to end. And I was reading other stuff as well, other books as well. I was at least trying to read other books as well, but I couldn't. And this book had me by the hook somehow. It was because it was very hard to read, or it was very complicated. So I concentrated and I focused. And I remember I was living alone at that time. I was in a room all by myself, just like this room, but it was comparatively small, and it just had a bed. And I was all by myself there, apart from a few mosquitoes that would come along and give me company in the night. And and the buzz, that. So that gave me company, and and apart from the mosquitoes, books gave me company. And I did not have a Wi-Fi there, no internet connection, so I would rather invest my time. I don't know what was going on inside my head after living alone for a considerable amount of time. There was something happening inside my head. I felt like some kind of mutation that was happening inside my head, because a lot of changes were coming. I was going through this from who I once was. I was a kind of person who you would say does not think when he speaks. I was very jovial, very excited all the time, hyperactive, and just would say whatever comes to my head right away. Would not think about it, would not frame it effectively. And so when I was living alone now, in silence, I could listen to my heartbeat. I could hear the clock. I could hear my pulse. I could see, I could observe it. I was seeing things in a very different way. I was observing things in a different way altogether. So that led to my engagement in reading. Now, I don't know whether it was because of reading books that I was observing things in a different way, or because I was living alone and I was spending so much time with myself. I was so lonely, so alone, in solitude. And before saying that it was solitude, for a long amount of time, for at least 2 to 3 to 4 semesters, I felt like I was in an isolation. Now, there's a difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation is when you're kind of forced to live alone. And in a way I was, because I was living with my cousins and I was very happy and all, but they had to shift someplace, and then they were living with their friends, so there wasn't much room for me. So I had to leave. And the hostel fees was too high, so I told my father that I could, take a small room and, live there. And just trying to save some money, right? So I lived in this colonel's place. I rented this one room that he had, and on the first floor. And I was living there all by myself, washing, eating, cooking, everything on my own. And that led to, like I said, there was like a shift in time and space. When I was living alone, it felt like time did not exist. There were times, not all the time, but there were definitely times when time did not exist, where there was a pause in time, because I don't know, I think everyone in their 20s or after 18, you should live alone for at least 3 to 4 years or 2 to 3 years, because that is a very transformative period in your life where you begin to understand the power of silence, the power of quietness, the power of listening to your own thoughts. But this is where you build your character. This is where you build your personality. This is where you become something. You become a different being altogether. This is where you exist. Now, I'm not exaggerating on that. Just try it and you'll see the difference it brings. Have your own space, and now I know a lot of people are not privileged enough to have their own rooms, or to shift in this one room and work on themselves. I would say if you don't have that, like I did not when I was in school from 9 to 12, I desperately needed my room, but I did not. I had to share it with my brother. But I used to take long walks. I would, find some time and space for myself, even those days if I think about it. But those days, I wasn't observing what was going on inside me. But this time I was. This is a period where you are so much aware of the transitions, the transformation that's happening within you. And that shows in your outer self as well. Your internal self shows in your outer self as well. You might there was a huge shift in the way I wore my clothes, from the way I would dress myself, to the way my hairstyle was, to hand movements. Now I was speaking with my hands. See, the thing is, when you use your hands as you're speaking, what happens is, hands allow you to express more. They allow you to deliver something very impactfully. So yeah, you can note it down as well, that using hands, it'll give you this something very impactfully. This is like a physical manifestation of words. It feels like words are coming out. You can express that like a sign language. So, and I hope you guessed it right. The fifth effective way of improving your English: living in silence, living aloneness, working, having your own time and space. That allows you to have room, that allows you to have this space where you can cultivate yourself, where you can bring newness in you, where you can transform yourself, where you can build yourself from scratch. And I wish for you to give yourself that time and space that is very necessary for you to transform in your life. I was very lucky to have that time and space and to use that. Now that's the difference. I know a few people from school who have also lived alone, not for a long amount of time like I did, but let's say even for 6 months and 10 months and 12 months, the only thing that took them back from changing who they were was this idea of self, this very strict idea of who you are inside, of how you should be in a society, and will the society accept me if I change, if I speak in a different way, if I choose to use different kind of words. How would my parents react? How would my brother, sister, my girlfriend, how would they react? That fear, it takes people back from changing. This pressure from this unrealized pressure of society, this unrealized this thought that what would society say, what would people say, that takes us back. And I wish and I hope for you to overcome that fear, to rise above that. I would also like to mention that as you improve your English, the chances of getting high-paying jobs, or let alone working, having a job, the chances increase. The probability of you getting a job, if you're effective in English, the chances are you will get a job. You will have that benefit. Because after all, it's communication. If you're working in a company, you need communication. And like most companies today, most companies are run from emails to WhatsApp groups, to communication with the receptionist, to the any sort of emails, any sort of, if you're applying for a job, you need to have an understanding of English language. And for that, I would say, the more effective you are, we'll come to cold emails, cold mailing, and we'll talk in the next few videos. We'll be talking about how to write, how to make your resume, how to effectively reach out to people, how to make contacts with people, how to reach out to people for work, how to make clients, and there's a lot in the bag, and I hope you stay on the journey with me in exploring everything. And I would like to stress on this practice of reading books. When you read a book, you are an invisible visitor in that fictional, in that imaginary world that the author, the writer, the poet, whoever it is is writing it or has written it down for you. Now, it's like hallucination. You hallucinate while reading words, and your imagination expands as you read. And the more you read, the more imagination has, the more you can imagine, the wider your imagination becomes, the wider your ideas, the wider is the reach for your ideas. See that every time that you're thinking about a sentence, there'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways of saying the same sentence that will come inside your head while you're about to say them. So that happens in milliseconds, like you'll have 10 different views with which you can say the same sentence as you grow fonder of reading, as you read. So reading allows you to imagine worlds, imagine something that is not written yet, and something that is yet to be written. And that's why you'll see a lot of writers read a lot. So now go read.